Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 161 of Lonely Gods. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined here, as always, by Kate.
Dave.
Hi, Kate. Are you ready to talk about Doctor Who this week?
I think so. Unfortunately, I don't know. Our new recording time is like right after I get up. I'm so zombified.
You could wake up before noon. There's nothing that says you can't do that.
Look, that would conflict with my rock star lifestyle.
So,
the rock star lifestyle of watching Simpsons videos on YouTube way too late. Playing Blood Omen.
Do we have any Dr. Blood Omen? Why?
Because it's good.
So do we have any Doctor Who news this week?
Yeah, we have a couple of news items. Let's see. So first up, Dudley Simpson died. And for those who don't know, Dudley Simpson is the composer for almost 300 episodes of the classic series. He first started working on the show in Planet of Giants all the way back in season 2. And by Tom Baker's time, he was basically scoring every episode up until he was fired in the 80s. So, yeah. That's too bad. He was like 95 too, so he had quite a long and illustrious life. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the music in the classic series for the most part. I think that, especially during the 70s, a lot of it could sound pretty samey, and it was like the same kind of farty synthesizer thing. But there's no denying that
sometimes it's good.
Sometimes it's good. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some pieces that I do like. I think City of Death is probably the one that comes to mind the most. And like it or not, it is a big part of the feel of those, eras of the show.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad thing, but...
Of course. It's just, I mean, granted, a lot of people kind of, especially classic series fans, like to fire a lot of shit at Murray Gold, who's the composer for the new series, for trying to basically, being a John Williams wannabe, where his music is overly bombastic and all that, which I can also see, but I don't know.
Still sad.
Still very sad. The other news piece, I guess, that I have is that the Third Doctor Adventures Volume 4, which is upcoming, the first story in it is announced to have the monk.
Nice.
Which should be interesting. We've had one of the monk short trips was Third Doctor and Liz. So, I mean, I guess there's an established relationship already for them. But yeah, that should be fun. The news piece also teased that the other story in the box set would be a returning enemy that people have requested a lot, and I assume that means Cybermen, because I can't really think of anything else that people would be clamoring for that they could also, do without breaking continuity.
What about the Zygons?
That's Fourth Doctor, though.
That's true. Yeah,
I don't know if he's met them before or not. That's a good point. But I don't know what people would be fucking clamoring for the Zygons. I mean, I've seen people online wanting a Cyberman story a lot because
did the third Doctor
he never saw them on TV.
No, but he saw the Silurians, right? Maybe it's them.
Yeah, it could be them.
Maybe it's classic giant rubber costume Silurians too.
Ugh, it better be. I hate these green Asari the new series has done. It's the same reason that I don't like Discovery's Klingons. It's like you can only change something so much before it's no longer the thing that it's supposed to be.
I caught a little bit of it, but I only watched like 10 minutes of the first episode, so.
Yeah. For Discovery, the mid-season finale is actually tonight, and so far I will say it's been a distinctly mixed bag. But
isn't all of Star Trek a distinctly mixed bag?
Yes, that's true. But this is the one that's on right now, which means this is the one that we hate, right? That's how Star Trek works. It's like Zelda. Whatever the current one is the worst one.
I suppose.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's Cybermen because the only other time that the Third Doctor has actually met the Cybermen was uh, Companion Chronicle, Bluetooth, which we've listened to.
I
And
remember that.
it was good, but it's
It was.
also one of those ones that from the first season of Companion Chronicles that's only on CD. So I think a little probably haven't heard it because of that.
So,
Um, and then I guess the last thing is I've been watching new series again. We watched The Bells of St. John the other day, starting the second half of season 7.
which one's that one?
It's the one where there's evil things in the Wi-Fi that make people into computer zombies or whatever.
Is it the one with the cubes? No.
No, that's Power 3. It's the one with the robots that have the spoon heads that suck
Okay,
people into
yeah.
the Wi-Fi. And
Yeah,
the
yeah.
doctor like drove a motorcycle up a tower because that's
Yeah, I remember that now. Okay.
it was okay. It was nice to I think it was nice to meet like the actual Clara this time. She's like the 21st century one. I assume she's the one that stays for a while.
Clara, yes, she does. She is the companion.
Yeah, no, I figured she's in the opening credits, but I was like, she's died the last 2 times we've seen her, so I'm like, this one is gonna. I think this is the one that sticks, right?
They explain that too.
Which is kind of a shame because it's like goes back to what I was saying, how like it's the 21st century spunky girl that is like the every new series companion, and it's like they could have had a space lady trapped with Daleks. They could have had a Victorian Marm. And they killed those ones, and then they made us stick with the 21st century one, which was like.
The problem with Clara is they get a good actress and give her mediocre dialogue and keep telling us how awesome she is without actually having her do anything, really.
That sounds a lot like Matt Smith's problem, too.
Yeah.
I do like that they're using the Great Intelligence as sort of the background villain. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was a meh episode. Yeah, it's always nice when continuity things like Unit shows up, but for the most part, it's like whatever. And the thing in the Wi-Fi is pretty silly, so
I like newer Unit.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kate wasn't in this one, so
Oh,
it was just Unit goons showing up at the end to arrest everybody for stealing the Wi-Fi.
Anyway, so then we also have our audios to talk about this week. It should be a shorter week this week too, because we only have 2, and one of them's a short trip.
Yeah.
But our first one here is the Peterloo Massacre, which is our first historical in a while.
I think so.
Pure historical, no timey-wimey nonsense.
I don't know. The last one I can think of is Black Orchid.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other timey-wimey nonsense.
Yeah. So this is about a part of history I actually learned about through this story. But the Doctor, Nyssa, and Tegan go back to 1800s England in the middle of the industrial age. So lots of very unsafe factories and shitty worker conditions, and the workers are organizing to protest their poor conditions. And the actual historical Peterloo Massacre is all of the rich people are members of the militia, the local militia, who, under orders from the king, are allowed to read the riot act and treat this peaceful and entirely peaceful protest as a military exercise and ride horses through a crowded square of people. And it's very violent and shocking. And the story doesn't shy away from any of that. It is a very dark, very just senselessly violent portrayal of history, which worked, I thought, really well. this isn't a very complicated story. Like we don't really have a lot of plot to get through. It's just the TARDIS.
Not too much. It's like the TARDIS lands in the trees of the rich guy in town, Hurley,
There's something goes wrong with the TARDIS sensors
because of pollution.
Yes,
So they land in a tree instead of on the ground.
and the internal clock of the TARDIS is off, so they think they've landed. Is it 3 years later or earlier than they did?
3 years earlier. They thought it was 1816 or something, and then it turned out to be 1819.
Yes.
It's either that or the other way around. One of those things.
So, like, I'm sure everyone but us listening to this, because I just assume that everyone that listens to these that aren't us are British.
Probably
Knew what this was and what it was going to turn out, what was happening. And I mean, it's fairly obvious just in the story itself. Like, something terrible is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then it does.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Nyssa befriends the maid at the manor. She's involved with the activists, and she's got a bastard child that she tries to pass off as her brother. Tegan, meanwhile, befriends the son in the house, sort of, and they go and end up mixed up with the militia, and Tegan gets locked up because she's mouthy, which,
Yeah, she gets thrown in prison for being mouthy, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, I think a lot of Doctor Who viewers in the 80s would have really liked to see that.
I mean, she was also dealt a really shitty, because like the guy just locks her up for being a suspected agent. Like, she didn't do anything, man.
No, she didn't.
And then William shows up to be like, yeah, no, she's with me, and he's still like, well, that's too bad. I already decided to lock her up, so she's getting locked up, even though now we know she's not.
Yep, and that's the way she goes.
Yeah.
And
it's just an example of showing how shitty the high society is at this time.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like the guy who decided to lock her up outranks William, the son from the manor, and
he was also lying about his rank to Tegan.
Yes, he was trying to impress her. I guess he took her, to the fucking crack slum part of town, then got her locked up. It was a great date. And then the Doctor mostly stays with Mr. Hurley himself, who runs the big factory in town, which is obviously very dangerous. And like, there's a kid there that's hurt, and he doesn't care. And so the Doctor basically is busy trying to lecture him and avoid the whole situation. And then once he does realize what year it is, the Doctor is mostly concerned with trying to gather up his companions and get the hell out of town.
Yes, because this is a horrific black spot on history. And to be fair, it does. This episode also does the perfect Doctor Who example of, you can't mess with fixed points in time, but we still mess with them slightly.
Yeah, kinda.
Because technically we did change history, because William did not participate in the massacre, and what's the family name? Henderson? Mr. Henderson is like horrified by what he did, and like will not,
Hurley.
see, like Hurley. Sorry, not Henderson. Yeah, Hurley. There's a book I'm reading right now where the well-off, rich-to-do bad guy, his name is Henderson. So my bad.
Ah, well, that's all right.
Yeah. No, I was like, where did I pull that from? It's like, oh yeah, I'm reading that book right now.
That book. So, but yeah, during the massacre, the maid's child is killed because she gets trampled.
By Mr. Hurley.
Yes, and
we happen. Well, not literally. Like, we don't. We see the aftermath, but Nyssa sees the horse run the maid down.
Yeah, and so William, having been told that this bastard child was his, is rather upset with his father, and so actually the massacre mostly happens in part 3, and so most of part 4 is actually concerned with trying to like beat William to the manor and convince him not to kill his father out of fury.
Yes, which is fascinating. Just how pissed off he is. I thought it was a really well done beat for that.
Yeah, I like that time was taken for the fallout of this, because the obvious comparison for this to me is the massacre from season 3 with
Yeah.
Stephen and the Doctor, and they kind of leave as the massacre begins. So and I think most historicals where something bad is going to happen and we can't stop it, that's usually kind of how it goes. So taking the time to see what happens after is kind of a nice idea.
Well, and to actually be there during the historical event, during this horrific tragedy.
Yes. There's some pretty tough stuff in this one.
There's a couple of misdirects I thought were pointless in the end.
Example?
Like, there's the whole idea that the child is William's son.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, that specifically is not the case. And it's like, well, then why did that? Why was this a plot point?
I thought it was the case.
Well, they made it seem, especially, they made it seem like no, it wasn't.
I thought he protested it, but
William
wasn't.
refuted it, and then
well, of course he refuted it.
But the father was like, no, like I know more about the circumstances, and it definitely wasn't William. I mean, he could have just been lying for the mother's sake because she was in the room, but
yeah. I'm pretty sure the implication is that it was like improper, and
yeah,
you're trying to downplay that so as not to like darken their reputation. But yeah. Anyway, this is this is the audio with the dead baby.
This is the audio with the dead baby. Well, lots of dead people.
Lots of dead people, but specifically a dead baby, which I kind of like. This it is a well done scene. That Nyssa doesn't really tell the mother that it's dead, and she doesn't say.
But you know.
Because throughout the whole story, they've been talking about how he's fussing and making noise, and she's like, oh, he's so quiet now.
Yeah, it's a really, really emotionally draining scene. Like, it is brutal.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. For me, I think you enjoyed this one more than I did, just because as nice as it is to see Peter Davison in a pure historical that doesn't shy away from the ugly spots of history, I feel like it's an unusual type of story for this Doctor, but it's a type of story we've seen before a lot of the time, and it kind of, like, it's very formula to me. Like, it follows the formula of the historical of the bad thing pretty much to a T.
Except we're here, like, unlike most of those stories, we're here for all of the horrific things. Like,
sure, but I'm just saying, like, that's up until the very end, where it's like we've got basically 3/4 of the story. It's very sort of samey to other things.
The third episode is the massacre, so it's really just the first half.
Well, it's toward the end of the third episode, though, so whatever. I'm not going to split hairs with you about that. I also just think that some of the commentary they have about the conditions of the time are a little bit on the nose. Like, it's like the pollution interfering with the TARDIS sensors. Like,
yeah, I forgot about that part.
Did you guys know that pollution is bad?
That part's really dumb.
It's really stupid, and I feel like for the most part, like, despite the characters themselves not being cartoonish, I think like the issues are treated very much.
Some of them. Well, I mean, the story
black and white, and it's like a lot of. There's not a lot of.
The story opens with a kid being hurt in the machinery.
Yeah, there's not a lot of nuance with the issues. Like, not. I mean, granted, obviously, child labor is a bad thing, but the thing is like the TARDIS crew a lot of the time kind of just either scoffs to each other about how backwards these people are, or shouts down the other characters about how bad they are, and it's like, which is too bad, because these are characters that are drawn pretty three-dimensionally otherwise, and it's too bad that they don't really get to have much of a conversation about what's going on, other than kind of, the TARDIS crew shouting at straw men.
I suppose.
So that kind of, I don't know, that kind of bugged me a little bit, and it's as much as I enjoy the last third, shall we say, of the story. I feel like getting there, like, I don't know, it wasn't perfect. I still liked it, most definitely, but I think out of this whole like trilogy of audios from early 2016, I think my favorite is still Aquitaine, but
Aquitaine was good.
Aquitaine is really good, but that's just me.
I don't know. I like this one quite a bit. So let's talk about our final story for the week, which is the short trip, The King of the Dead, which is it's pretty weird, Kate.
Yeah, it's weird.
So why don't you explain this one?
Well, TARDIS lands in a what appears to be a nightclub and on the stage, and everybody's applauding them, and they're like, "What the fuck?"
Except for the stage manager, who's just like, "How the fuck did you do that? What are you doing? You're ruining my show."
Yeah, so it turns out they've landed in the 80s in London, I guess, where there's a play going on called The King of the Dead, and it's like a weird interactive theater thing where basically they rented out this whole building, and so there's actors in different rooms and stuff, and so the audience kind of like wanders around the building to all these different spots of like the nightclub and the king's chambers and whatever, and they take in the story sort of as participants. And yeah,
I have not heard of this before. This specific production, which is apparently very famous.
oh really, is that a real thing?
I think so. Maybe I could be wrong.
I don't know. I assumed that it was
These
bullshit.
are real things. I've actually done one of these before.
Oh well,
The one I did was not. I could be totally wrong.
well. Anyway, this play in particular is about King Edward the something in the 30s abdicating the throne, but also there's a murder mystery of it too. Anyway, so
But that's just the backdrop, which is a cool backdrop. It's interesting.
yes, so like the king's like valet or whoever he's supposed to be. The character is Joshua. The actor playing him is Patrick. He seems to be flitting between the two personalities like uncontrollably. Yeah. And he takes the girls off to see the king because apparently that's very important. And meanwhile, the doctor stays with the stage manager, and they go to the security room, and they see like there's a guy in one of the rooms, like curled up in a ball, like upset. So they go to see him, and it turns out that he is someone from a unit, and he has had part of his mind taken. And there's like this creepy spider thing on the ceiling that's sort of like transparently glass and made of building. So that's no good. But anyway, so basically what it boils down to is all the shenanigans. The Patrick, he
turns
basically
out to be the son of a unit soldier,
yes,
who was left by himself to fend with a monster and was killed by it. So Patrick wants to take revenge, except he's also, his mind has been this monster thing is part of a hive mind.
Yeah, there's these gross ceiling spiders.
Yes, when it killed his father, it absorbed his mind into it, so that's how Patrick was able to like get it out of the vault or whatever.
Right, because the King's Crown has like this interdimensional equation on it that I guess is opening the rift,
which allows these things through spiders to come in. Yes,
right. So yeah, he got that out of the unit vault with his ghost dad's help, I guess.
Yes. I mean, it's a short trip. It's half an hour long. It's creepy.
Yep.
It's got a good atmosphere in it. I enjoyed it. That's basically, it's just did you like it or did you not like it is almost all you can say about some of these short trips, just because of how being in the audio format, they have so little time to set the stage properly. So they are quicker than, like, I know there's a lot of like half-hour TV where they get more in depth than most short trips are, but it's because you also have visuals that can convey so much in so little time.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like short trips are so varied. Like, there's a few of them, like from a couple weeks ago, the Alliance of Trafalgar. Like that was about 20 minutes. This one is slightly over half an hour, and we've had short trips that are close to 45 minutes.
And then we've had,
So
wasn't Ghost Trap like 15?
no, Ghost Trap was like
Was it
40
45?
something.
Was
Yeah,
it? Okay.
yeah,
One of the ones that was like 15 we liked. And then
yeah.
one of the and then there's the rhubarb one, which is pretty short that we liked.
This is the rhubarb one. Well, you like the rhubarb one.
You like the rhubarb one too, and you know it.
Eh,
It's just weird. It's
it's
just
just
like
bizarre. But
you
yeah, I mean,
you
point
like
is,
it in the sense that you listen to it and you're like, well, I'm glad I listened to that, but I'll probably never listen to it again.
yeah, it's not really on my list for a revisit, but
No,
any fucking way. King of the Dead. I like the creepy ceiling spiders, especially because they're sort of like predator camoed, but you can hear their little scratchy noises, which is nice and creepy. And yeah, so I enjoyed this one, and I think it was nice because the Patrick and his revenge kick, like Sarah Sutton is the reader for this one, so it
who
has
does
a
a
little.
great job.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's nice because it gives her a chance to explore some of the darker feelings for Nissa about
Well, and
her grief over Traken and her hatred of the Master. And so she admits to him that, like, yeah, I wanted to kill the Master for a while because of what he did.
it's a common plot point for her character, but every time they bring it up, they handle it very well. So it's never like
Mm-hmm.
they're never just beating that drum again. It's like, okay,
No,
this
and I think that
it's relevant to the plot.
yeah, and I think like this one progresses that little plot point a little bit because she says she doesn't feel that way anymore. She says she's kind of gotten made peace with it and forgiven it a little bit,
Yeah.
and so she's using that to try and help Patrick in the same way. I also really like the use of Unit in this story. I think that's a really clever idea to bring them in because Unit doesn't really figure into the Fifth Doctor's era hardly at all. Um, and it's interesting to kind of see that revisited and see that, like, oh yeah, all those guys that got vaporized by Alien of the Week was they had families and all
Yeah.
that, and no one will ever know, so
I wanted to say I thought Sarah Sutton did a great job reading this. She does a great Tegan and a decent Doctor.
yeah.
We never really had. There's not many companion. I don't think are there any Fifth Doctor companion chronicles.
Yeah, we already did one.
Oh
We
well,
did
a lot.
the Darkening Eye, which is what
But
spoiled Adric dying.
oh
And
yeah,
Sarah Sutton read that one as well. So
oh, I forgot about that. But because we don't get a lot of Fifth Doctor characters reading other characters, except in these short trips for the most part.
yeah, we've had a few short trips, and I think most of them have been most of the dramatic readings or like limited cast ones have been either Peter Davison reading them or Sarah
Yeah,
Sutton. The only one I can think of that was Janet Fielding was the Smoke and Mirrors one with Houdini.
yeah. Well, and then I think some of the other ones that we had didn't have Tegan in them either. So
No,
it was just Nissa and the Doctor. So there were no.
there was no
Uh,
Tegan.
yeah, there was no Tegan for her to do that role of. But I thought
Yeah,
she did a good job. I've really grown fond of Tegan. It's very surprising.
she's definitely a very polarizing character.
Oh, I know. I'm
And
well aware.
like I said, I think the dividing line is people who listen to Big Finish and people who don't, to an extent.
Yes.
Because she, like, on TV, there's no denying that for the most part, outside of like the Mara stories, like she is very abrasive all
But
the time.
she got better, but
She
it
did.
took a while, and she was so obnoxious at first.
Yeah, and especially when you have that on top of Adric being a shitbrick, it's like I can see why the reaction is like, ugh.
Well, and it's like if you made Jackie Tyler a regular character, and it's like this is gonna take some getting used to.
Well, but the thing is like Jackie Tyler at least is fun, whereas Tegan, like early Tegan, is she just bitch whine and complain
Yes.
the entire time.
But it's that type of just grating character where Tegan, I mean Jackie Tyler's funny,
Yeah,
and
she's fun.
she's
Tegan
always used
is
limitedly. But Tegan grows on you because she does develop and she becomes a better character.
Yeah, for me, I think, at least in terms of watching the TV episodes, the turning point for me was around Earthshock, when she kind of gets into the Ellen Ripley mode and starts gunning down Cybermen and stops whining
Yeah.
for a second. It was like, all right, you can do this. And Earthshock, of course, also got rid of Adric, so even if I didn't like Tegan, there was only one annoying person to deal with.
Yes. Oh, thank God. So, Kate, what do we have for next time?
Well, for next time, we're back on television for the first chapter of the Black Guardian trilogy, and it's called Modern Undead.
Excellent. So the Black Guardians come back.
That would be the implication, yes.
The randomizer didn't work.
Well, we knew that from the audios already. It's like I'm the master of chaos, and you're trying to get away from me using randomness. Brilliant.
Should be exciting. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We will be back with that next week.
Hot damn.